introduced Camille Paglia, by title Professor of Humanities at Philadelphia's University of the Arts. By growing reputation, the scourge of American feminism. By self-assessment, America's leading female intellectual. If there's truth in that, it began to emerge in 1990 with the publication of Sexual Personae, an historical analysis of literature and art, which, among other things, hailed the male capacity for creativity, praised much of the classic Western European and American literary canon currently out of favor with many academics, and most provocatively, accepted, in fact trumpeted, the premise that sexual stereotypes spring from basic truths. She considers herself a passionate feminist, a champion of opportunity, individuality, and choice, but contends that modern feminism has fast descended into dogma, intolerance, and male bashing. Tonight, Camille Paglia. And thanks for staying up later. Here is the so-called scourge of modern feminism, Camille Paglia. Recently you told Charlie Rose that your aim is nothing less than the complete destruction of the Gloria Steinem wing of modern feminism. You want to explain?
Well, I think that that current feminism began laudably 20 years ago, but quickly got off track into man-bashing and a kind of weepy, whiny, white middle-class ideology, and I'm simply trying to bring back the great feminism of the 20s and 30s of Katharine Hepburn and Amelia Earhart, a feminism that stresses independence, self-reliance, personal responsibility, and not blaming other people for your problems. And I feel directly inspired by the 200-year record of feminism. I think that there is no backlash right now to feminism, but rather to Gloria Steinem's brand of Betty Crocker feminism.
But isn't that 200-year history of feminism a feminism of extraordinary individuals? And all political movements begin with extraordinary individuals, but the notion is to spread it out among the masses. So Amelia Earhart and Katharine Hepburn and Eleanor Roosevelt are fine, but these people stand out. They're aberrations. And the notion, I would think, that a modern feminist would try to advance is this is meant to get beyond Gloria Steinem and beyond Betty Friedan and to somebody who's a housewife in Timbuktu.
You're very right. This current phase of feminism began well, trying to extend feminism to the ordinary woman in the home. And I think that it very quickly left that. As I often seem to speak for the neglected women out there. I've been a career woman. I'm unmarried. I'm childless. But I feel that you know, that the honor of being a mother is often dismissed in the kind of current feminism, which is exclusively concerned with yuppie careerists and their problems, high-paying jobs. And I think the New York media in particular has been utterly servile to the Gloria Steinem brand of feminism. And I am not a conservative, but I think that I'm a libertarian, a 60s libertarian, but I think that the Republicans are correct that there has been a wholesale kind of contempt for family values that, that would characterize my entire background. I'm someone who's pro-pornography, pro-prostitution, pro-homosexuality, pro-legalization of drugs. I represent everything that's a kind of opposed to family values, but I still think that traditional values are the backbone of this country.
Now, are you pro-pornography because you like it or because you're a libertarian?
I love it. The current Playboy has an article by me that begins, "I am a pornographer." What I've done in my first book, Sexual Personae, is to show that art and pornography are not separated, but rather it's everywhere. I call Michelangelo a pornographer. It's, even the great Pietà in the Vatican of Mary and Jesus has pornographic elements. It's a very shocking book.
To paraphrase you, I think you may have said it of Mozart, but it might as well be Michelangelo. There are no female Mozarts or Michelangelos for the same reason that there's no female Jack the Ripper.
Correct. I think that genius and criminality are both extremes and deviations off the end of the human spectrum. And this is my explanation for why there are no great women artists. Not that women have, have not been held back from practicing so many of the art forms, but rather that great art of the Picasso or Michelangelo kind comes from obsessiveness, comes from a kind of self-mutilation of relationship and so on. That's why we have very few women chess masters, very few obsessed serial murderers or computer hackers and so on. I think that the male brain has a greater capacity for both genius and criminality, but both are deviations.
Well, then how do you account for great female names in literature?
In literature, anything that has to do with psychology, women are extremely good at. And this would, as a matter of fact, even in music, places where there is room for the individual voice, for self-expression. There are great women vocalists, great women pianists, and so on, but not great women composers, interestingly, because composition seems to be very abstract, cold, almost mathematical. Women don't particularly like an inhuman world you know, a cold, almost astronomical kind of a world. Mm-hmm.
Is anatomy destiny?
No, because I believe that anatomy gives you a predisposition in one direction. Then I feel that you have to defy nature. I'm a romantic. I believe that you should shake your fist in the face of nature. So everything that I think everything great in the human species has come from the quarrel with nature. So I believe in opposing nature.
Were you overstating for effect and to get attention when you said if the advancement of human society were left in the hands of women, we'd all still be living in huts?
Well, yes, I said if civilization had been left in female hands, we'd be living in grass huts. What I meant by that, and of course people who know nothing about the history of architecture were completely lost by that, I'm saying in effect that women seem to be content with what is. They seem to want, they don't want to disturb, they don't want to make people unhappy, right? And that all the great advances have in some way been a pushing into the unknown and a breaking of tradition. And here is where women are deficient. Women rarely, I mean, there are exceptions like me. I'm an example. I mean, I don't care whether people are happy with me or not. I mean, I just go around, I just, you know, smash through the cucumber frames and go ahead and express myself and so on. And Betty Davis and other Aries did as well. I'm saying that there was a great moment in history when we went from using perishable materials for architecture to using stone, right? And each one of those steps forward had been a pivotal, you know, moment. There was another one. Once we had been nomadic. We had just wandered and used cave shelters, right? There was a moment when mankind settled down and then began using things like straw or wood and so on. What I'm remembering actually is the round huts at the time of Romulus and Remus in Rome, at the time of the you know, at the time earliest founding of Rome. They were thatched huts over around a hearth. The hearth was the center of the home. But there was a movement forward. Every move forward means you've lost something, okay? I believe that most, and you can see the way women are behaving about me. Anything that disrupts their established way of thinking, they're afraid, they're threatened. Whereas men, I can talk with men. This is why I had so much trouble being a lesbian, okay? Because I would like go to a lesbian bar and try to like meet women, and no one wanted to talk to me, and I would end up talking to some gay guy. He may have dropped out of school at age 14. I could talk for 4 hours to him. He had opinions, he had this, and I thought, what is it about the male mind? I believe the male brain is different. The male brain, I think, is more limited than the female brain. I think the female brain is actually vaster, is more multi-tracked. But men have this power, okay? They have this power of concentration, and they have this aggressive energy that's coming from the hormone. Let's face it, there are hormonal differences that current feminism refuses to face, all right? And I have to conclude, the reason I get along better with men in talking than I do with women is that my level of hormonal energy is male. And I think I'm just a monstrosity. I'm a deviation. I'm just like a, you know, I'm certainly no pattern for ordinary human life. My ability to be alone and to be satisfied with my own thoughts and my own self-development, it's not normal.
You accept the label, then, that you're conceited, braggadocious,
absolutely,
that you desire to have the spotlight on you. I think someone described you as someone who'd like to walk into the room and have all the cameras go pop, 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 pop.
Now, why? Now, look, I am the antidote to the self-esteem obsession of current feminism, okay? All this talk about, oh, the child within and the victim and all that, and here I am, like a man, and saying, guess what? I have no self-esteem problems, okay? All right? So I'm a better role model for young women. I'm saying have confidence, develop yourself, be self-reliant. Correct. That's right. And also, by the way, so many news reports have me eating. I'm always eating, eating, eating. And that is the antidote to the anorexia and bulimia fetish, okay, of current feminism. Reporters are constantly talking about how much I eat, with what enjoyment. I'm Italian, okay? So I am trying to, as is Madonna. So between Madonna and I are doing a lot to get feminism back on track toward normal human life.
What is Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan and the rest, what have they done that's worthwhile? What do you owe them a debt for?
Well, first of all, my feminism precedes either of them, okay? I am on the record back in the 1950s as having made these eccentric transsexual gestures at the age of 5, 6, and 7. All right, so I owe them nothing, okay? I owe them nothing. But Betty Friedan I admire very much. I'm sorry that she has made some rude remarks about me because the current feminism establishment has shunned her. She is shunned, okay? And there are many overlaps between Betty Friedan's views and mine. She is the mother of the modern movement. She founded Now, and the drift of Now away from Betty Friedan is, to me, the whole source of the problem. Gloria Steinem is a cliquish, power mad, all right, snobbish, elitist, who has gotten the New York media in a stranglehold, all right, and essentially Gloria Steinem does not speak for all of feminism and now does not speak for all of women, all right, and that has to stop, all right. For Gloria Steinem to go on comparing me to a Nazi, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The suppression of independent voices like mine for the last 20 years, all right, is appalling. Current feminism is in a Stalinist phase, a Kremlin phase. Susan Faludi, Naomi Wolf are merely clones of the Kremlin. What I represent is again, a feminism that precedes the current movement and that many people feel more at ease with. I'm someone Gloria Steinem's record with men is rotten, okay? She has made many poor choices. I've never lived with a man, okay? I have fought with men. I fight with men constantly. I never let men take advantage of me. And so because...
Let me interrupt. That may be an interesting fact of your life, that you've never lived with a man or you fought with a man.
Correct.
But I don't see where that gives you a better credential than Gloria Steinem, who may, I don't know her personal history that well, who may have had disappointing relationships with men,
no,
if
I'm
in
sorry.
fact that's the case.
No. Here's the relevance. Marilyn French and Gloria Steinem, these women who, or Karen DeCrow, former head of NOW, these women who were weak toward men, okay, and made bad mistakes, then glommed onto this current feminist ideology to explain to themselves and to others what happened. Well, it wasn't me, it was him. I have never been weak toward men. That's why I don't blame men. My anger toward men, my confrontationalism with men is overt. It's out there, okay? I don't need this brand of feminism to explain weakness, because I'm not weak. I don't need the approval of men. There's no man in the world that I cater to, okay? So what I'm saying is these white middle-class women love this current brand of ideology because it allows them to explain their own weaknesses to the world. You see, it wasn't me. It wasn't me at all. It was the patriarchy and all that crap. These words like patriarchy, which are meaningless, big fuzz words. All right? You know, I'm popping a lot of balloons, and that's one of them.
Almost everything you say and write causes outrage. In fact, it seems as if a lot of it is calculated to do so. But maybe the single greatest furor is over your comments about date rape. Want to elaborate?
Well, my new book, the new collection, Sex, Art, and American Culture, contains the original date rape essay that started this all. Most people have only seen scattered references to my theories. They've never seen the full, long essay, which begins, rape is an outrage that cannot be tolerated in civilized society. Rape is, of course, outrageous. What I oppose is this endless scenario and hysteria over date rape, which I think is quite a separate phenomenon that's coming from a kind of white middle-class feminism trying to gain control over men and portraying all of men as rapists and all of human history as nothing but a record of rape. Now, today, in certain campuses, you can be charged with rape merely for making a vulgar comment about a woman's behind. I think that...
Wait a minute. You can be charged with rape or sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment. All right, but it is defined as rape. Many radical feminists define verbal, sexual, remarks as a form of rape. It is extremely bad. You cannot believe how bad it's gotten, right? And wherever I go, this is the charge issue everywhere. It's now wildly out of control. So that people now, far from creating a better situation for rape victims, now it's so out of control that rape has become a joke. No one believes it now. Now, the minute you hear a date rape charge, it's sort of like, oh, right, and so on. And this is cutting down on the proper outrage that we should feel and the proper sympathy for authentic rape victims, which for me is usually stranger rape, or it's a case of a gross intrusion of sex into a non-sexual situation. I support sexual harassment guidelines, but I feel, again, even those are being carried out of control. I do not think that Anita Hill, for example, was a victim of sexual harassment. I reject her claim.
Let's come back to Anita Hill in just a second. We do want to get to that. But let's set up two possible scenarios. I can see someone saying, all right, a woman goes out with a man, they wind up in a sexual situation, the signals are ambiguous, he has reason to believe that she thinks it's okay, she later interprets it differently, maybe even differently than she felt at the time, and places a different label on it, and these are no sorts of guidelines to run a railroad with.
Right.
I can understand that. On the other hand, I don't think that to qualify as rape, somebody has to jump out of the bushes carrying a club. What if we're out on a date, and you've consented to go out on a date with me, we have a conversation, we wind up back at my room. Just because we're in my room doesn't mean you've consented to anything that I can impose upon you.
I disagree with this. I feel that, again, through my study of history, that unchaperoned dating is a relatively recent phenomenon, and it's largely confined to the industrialized democracies. I feel that every day is potentially a sexual encounter. What else is it, all right? If a woman is not interested in sex, she must signal that from the start. She should not be going to a man's room alone. She should not be getting into a car with a strange man. These people can be Ted Bundys, all right? Look, we have to go back to the fact that it was my generation, the 60s generation, that broke all the rules. When I was in high school in the early 60s, we were protected as young women. We were expected to be virgins. Only tramps went to bed with the young guys, right? Now, in college, we're the ones who said to the campuses, get out of our sex lives. We were imprisoned in all-women dorms. We had to be in 11 o'clock at night and sign in. We said, let us make our own mistakes. They said, it is dangerous. You will be raped. We said, the price of freedom is risking rape. Now, what's happened today is that young women have inherited the freedoms that my generation won, but they do not realize that with that freedom come risks and responsibilities. Now, again, I'm saying sex is a dangerous and unstable, it's a combustible force. You cannot predict how someone is going to behave. A very rational person, male or female, can suddenly behave irrationally if you push the wrong button, because all kinds of things come flowing out of you that are nonverbal, that are beneath the conscious realm. But Freud was thrown out of the feminist movement 20 years ago by Kate Millett, who declared him a sexist. So what I'm saying is that we're not even aware of things which can suddenly erupt up, all right? Things can lead, I mean, gay men have known for centuries that the price of sex can be death. Gay men, since the time of ancient Rome, were going down to the docks, into the alleyways, and ending up beaten up and dead, all right? What is this sentimentality that the Gloria Steinem wing of feminism has created around the issue of sex? It's supposed to be completely this totally risk-free, cotton candy thing. Everything is wonderful, and the slightest thing that's disturbing or abusive is somehow, it's always coming from men. Men are generating it. I am saying women are giving signals, nonverbal signals that they're not aware of, okay? If a girl goes to a fraternity party dressed like Madonna, is drinking 11 tequilas, and goes up to a man's room, she is communicating below the level of language. I'm sorry, it does not do any good to say no always means no. Now I'm saying no. To go to a man's room is, in effect, to consent to sex. This is what I want to bring back. Right? I'm pro-sex. I'm saying go with it. Go with it, girl, okay? Go with it. Have the adventure, but stop whining when you wake up hungover the next day, and he doesn't call, and he doesn't send flowers, and then the feminists come around and convince you you've been raped.
So if I call you up for a date, and I pick you up and you get in the car, have you now placed yourself in such danger that no matter what I do, you've got no claim against me?
No, but what I'm saying is that my #1 concern is the dignity and freedom of women. Right? I'm saying the dignity and freedom of women will not be achieved by overprotection of women. Right? It will be achieved by women taking personal responsibility for themselves and deciding what they want and being upfront about their sexual desires. I want women to want sex as much as men want sex.
You called Madonna the face of modern feminism. Were you going for a line that would get some attention, or do you believe it?
I've loved Madonna since the beginning, the very beginning when people dismissed her, and I just feel so much in sync with her. She's like my double. We're both Italian Catholic girls coming out of strict families with strong father figures. We both have pornographic minds. We both love gay men and drag queens. We're workaholics. We're drug-free. We have trouble with relationships, and we just have this ability to speak to I feel it's easier to speak to 1 million people than to deal with one, almost. It's very strange. Italian-American women did very little. Geraldine Ferraro is a rare example. And suddenly these two Italian-American dominatrixes rose up. We're these two Amazon figures that we're just solitary figures who, through our power of imagination, projected these hallucinations to the world. And the world is interested. People can't stand it. People say, oh, they market themselves. No, it isn't. The world is interested. We're of the moment. We are of the 90s, both of us.
With Camille Paglia, the professor of humanities at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, it's pretty clear that you want the fame. And do you worry that your persona undercuts what you and those who admire you perceive as the scholarly basis of your work? Your first book is essentially a book of art and literary criticism. Your critiques of pop culture come from a very learned perspective. However, it's mixed in with this fast-talking delivery. I think James Wolcott said in Vanity Fair, listening to you talk at length is like having Woody Woodpecker repair your roof.
Perfect.
Okay?
Perfect. That was wonderful.
And you compare yourself with Madonna. You compare yourself with Mary McCarthy or whomever else. You have a grandiose view of yourself. There are conceits that are worn right on your sleeve.
That's right.
Does this undercut the points you're trying to make, because somebody could look at you and say, this is an entertaining woman, this is a provocative woman, she's made for the modern talk show, and 5 years from now she'll be burnt out and no one will know who she is.
Well, you see, the thing is that for 20 years...
World's longest question, by the way. I have the transcript to prove it. Go ahead.
I couldn't get published, you see, for 15 years, and I couldn't get a job. So essentially, it's only through this very dramatic, theatrical Joan Rivers Italian persona that I've managed to gain an audience. And I think that...
Is Joan Rivers Italian?
No, but
I see,
she made my life easier, because before Joan Rivers, people couldn't bear me, and then now they just think, oh, Joan Rivers. She's done a lot for me. Anyway, no, but I think that what is needed in America is a bridging of the great gap between academe and the popular audience. And that's what I'm trying to do in the way that Mary McCarthy did, or Dorothy Parker. It's been a long time since we've had a figure in America who is known for her literary work and known for contributing to issues that are close to the public. So I'm someone who writes on Diana, Princess of Wales, on Elizabeth Taylor, and so on. At the same time, I know all about Greece and Egypt and so on. That is extremely unusual. And I think that that's really, it kind of capsulizes my aim to, like, I think it's been very bad to have this split between the university and the audience of mass media. I'm a pop culture baby. I'm a product of the 60s. See, my persona is actually me. It's my personality, which was unbearable for most of my life. And now that I'm getting older, it's like Katharine Hepburn. As you get older, this kind of obnoxious personality, people cherish it. They say, oh, what a feisty old lady she is, like that, you know? Mm-hmm. And essentially, I'm not playing to this audience. I think I was so used to the idea that I wasn't going to be published in my own lifetime that I'm playing to the next generation and the generation beyond that. So that's what I'm doing in a way. Those are my real readers. Just as I loved Victoria Sackville West, and this very eccentric woman who also was bisexual and so on, and she was so flamboyant. Or George Sand was a great role model for me. George Sand is someone who dressed in men's clothing, great literary woman who also communicated what she was through images. I have a great power to do that, to communicate what I am, to make it accessible to a mass audience. That's what I think is the task of the intellectual, to translate complex ideas into simple form.
Fairly provocative conversation, I'd say, and I promised we'd talk about Anita Hill, and we ran out of time, and there's only one way to remedy this. You'll come back tomorrow, won't you?
Certainly. She
will. From your most recent book, Sex, Art, and American Culture, which is a collection of essays. I listened carefully to Anita Hill's testimony at the Senate hearings. I found her to be sincere and intelligent, but I reject her claim of sexual harassment. What exactly transpired between her and Clarence Thomas, we can never know. That Hill was distressed by references to sex may indeed be the case, but since they were never threatening and never led to pressure for a date, I fail to see how they constitute sexual harassment. Many religious men, as well as women, find conversations about sex or pornography inappropriate and unacceptable. This is not a gender issue. It is our personal responsibility to define what we will and will not tolerate. Mm-hmm. What kind of firestorm has that brought down upon you?
Well, so far, not that much. People are always upset by everything that I say, so this is no exception. But I think the feminization of Anita Hill has been very typical of the way the media just ignores most of the country and falls directly under Gloria Steinem's view of the world. I mean, the reports were that half the people in the country did not particularly sympathize with Anita Hill's claims. I support sexual harassment guidelines. I think it's one of the wonderful and solid innovations of contemporary feminism. But I feel that the Anita Hill case has taken it into another and dangerous realm. That is, I just feel that I am a radical on the subject of free speech. I feel that speech must not be controlled in this country. If someone offends you by speech, career women must learn how to defend themselves with words and use aggressive words back. The idea that somehow one always has to be protected in one's career, that Anita Hill should be let off the hook 10 years down the line for the way she put her career interests above feminist principle, I think that it's an appalling situation. I think I'm someone who has always fought back against anything that I felt was demeaning to women, and I paid the career price for it. That's why my career was a disaster, and there are many women like me who wouldn't put up with it. Instead, Anita Hill kept smiling and smiling and smiling, went home and had an upset stomach, okay, and then 10 years later is suddenly in full view of the television cameras, and Clarence Thomas, a person who did not impress me before the hearings, and suddenly Clarence Thomas is being forced to reconstruct conversations 10 years old. Well, what is this, a totalitarian regime? I mean, God knows what we said 10 years ago in any situation. I think the whole thing was appalling, and I think that the feminist sentimentality about Anita Hill is very typical of what's wrong with contemporary feminism.
When the Thomas hearings were front and center in every newspaper in the country, there were many articles written which purported to come from a scholarly perspective, which described syndromes that supposedly explained this passivity in modern society, that in fact it wasn't peculiar to Anita Hill, that in fact many, many women see this as the only way, this go along to get along. It's the lesser of two evils course. You're a woman of achievement. You have relatively few sisters in that environment. You're in a male-dominated situation. You're going to throw your whole career away. That there was some psychological explanation for this kind of behavior, short of just having the gumption to say stop.
I think she was simply self-interested. I mean, the fact that she continued a warm friendship with Clarence Thomas for years afterwards should have tipped people off, all right? One has known women like this who have like, kissed every male butt on the way up, okay? They're the people who are now at Harvard, at Princeton, at Yale, okay? They make me sick. These women who suddenly stand on feminism where it's fashionable to do so, okay? I mean, this is a very frequent type, the ones who are always looking for male approval. She was never a sister to any women in the office. I at least have deep, friends and alliances with women. She never did. It seems to me, this seems to me a very poor case, but it has served contemporary feminist purposes to use it very cynically in what, for the abortion issue. Now, I am pro-choice, but I feel that there was a real misuse of this, of the Senate inquiry for partisan purposes. I think that the way contemporary feminism has gotten off track onto this abortion issue has twisted everything, and the Anita Hill thing is a product of that. Right? I myself, I'm pro-choice, but I at least respect the other side. I see there's an ethical case to be made pro-life. As a matter of fact, the ethical weight may be on the opposite side to me on this. But no, contemporary feminism has, with its sanctimoniousness, its moral superiority, has deformed the proper mission of feminism by its hysteria over these issues. I mean, the worst aspects about women, the worst things ever said about women in history have been proved true about, in terms of the behavior of the feminist establishment about abortion and about Anita Hill. That is, their inability to think, their emotionalism, their lack of clarity, their basic unfairness. And men have been silent. There's a lot of silence, all right? The media has just run with this case and has silenced the 50% of the country that did not particularly cotton up to Anita Hill.
Somewhere, 5 people say that Anita Hill improved the grades of male law students in return for sexual favors. We have no real evidence of that, but now these law students are going to come up and they're going to say, she winked at me, she told me this or that. There's something about this that would take anybody who has some regard for what the basic principles of protection of the individual are in this society would go nuts. The very people who, if they saw you coming out of a house carrying a bloody axe and found 2 dead bodies inside, the first thing they would say is, read her rights, make sure that she's regarded as innocent until proven guilty, and they'd be correct to do so. Didn't care about Clarence Thomas in this situation, and the fact that Clarence Thomas's political views may not be mine doesn't change what he has the right to expect.
That's right. You have now put your finger on the gross partisanship of the current phase of feminism. Now, I am a registered Democrat. I voted for Jesse Jackson 4 years ago. I voted for Clinton in this primary and so on. I'm supporting Clinton now. But I'm telling you that the tilt of the feminist agenda toward liberal and the Democratic Party, that has been a disaster for feminism. Feminism should be bipartisan. It should transcend our party system. And that is exactly what has distorted and deformed current feminism. The reason for the current backlash, again, it's not because there's a backlash against feminism, is because of these terrible errors, the injustice, the irrationality, and the just general hysteria of the Gloria Steinem wing of feminism. You have focused on it. If it was the tables were turned, people would be enraged by the way Clarence Thomas was treated. And I think that no man, no woman should be treated the way he was. It was just, in a democracy, I mean, he was just stripped of his dignity, of his rights, and so on. And I feel he emerged from the hearings with, as I said, vastly increased stature. I wasn't impressed with him at all until he fought back on television. That was an amazing night, which of course no one wants to admit the power of his, or the way he turned the tables on his accusers. And it was a magnificent display.
It seemed in some quarters that if you didn't verify this process, validate this process, that you didn't think sexual harassment was an issue of concern.
Right.
That it seemed to be a referendum on whether or not you approved or disapproved of sexual harassment.
There you have the cheap, simplistic polarities that the Gloria Steinem wing is always forcing on people. And until the New York media wakes up and gets out from under the inky squid cloud of Gloria Steinem, okay, it's never going to see reality as it is. It's always going to be surprised by what the country really thinks. The country is far more conservative than the New York media.
How much of this constant invoking of Gloria Steinem's name in our first visit and now this one is simply a clash of ideas, and how much is jealousy? I mean, Gloria Steinem is a pop icon, all right? That's what you aspire to be. Maybe you think you are already. How much of this is like, hey, I should be paid as much attention to, I should be as much a household name as Gloria Steinem?
Well, for 20 years, I struggled to get heard. I was drummed out of the feminist movement 20 years ago because of my passion for the Rolling Stones, who were declared sexist, right? And I struggled to get heard for 20 years. And while I watched all these figures constantly being, being trotted out by the media as somehow spokesmen for feminism, spokesmen for women, I feel that Gloria Steinem is a real rip-off artist. She's never been the source of any original idea. She's an extremely weak thinker. She's a sentimentalist. She was very important at one time. In the late 60s, she played a pivotal role. I was a great admirer of her. In fact, every women's class that I teach, the class has to recognize Gloria Steinem's name and realize that she was founded Ms. Magazine and so on. Until her recent book, her name was completely forgotten. Young women didn't even know her name. She was very important. And I as a matter of fact, early on, Time Magazine was talking about, it was 20 years ago, who would make good candidates for the presidency for the future. And I wrote it and I suggested Gloria Steinem, as she aged, was going to get much more venerable and much wiser. So I have a deep disappointment with not only Gloria Steinem, but with Germaine Greer, with Susan Sontag. So many of those women who should have developed and evolved in their thinking have just, celebrity seems to have stopped their development.
Paglia, you were cheered that William Kennedy Smith was acquitted.
No, I simply said that I thought that was a terrible case, that all the public date rape cases have been terrible cases to base a rape ideology on. I thought that was ridiculous, that case. As if when this girl went back to the Kennedy compound, she was like this innocent little flower that was suddenly attacked. What did she think? I mean, she was using him. I mean, her only interest in that guy was that he was a Kennedy, okay? It was a total rip-off on both people's parts. Both people were scum, as far as I can say. And I just oppose this turning of date rape victims into heroines. I mean, this is when people look back at this time, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it's going to look like the great period of Victorian sentimentality with like all these like little dying figures and Dickens, and go into a Victorian cemetery, you see all these like orphans and widows and so on. I absolutely oppose the canonization of date rape heroines. I'm sick of it. I much approve of Madonna, the whore of Babylon. It's much more my hero than would be a date rape victim.
Aren't you inching toward, or maybe taking long strides toward, a situation where misjudgments, as egregious and stupid as they may be, then automatically, if not justify, then they remove your basis for complaint for any misdeed that misjudgment leads to?
Correct.
It's very stupid of me to go walking down the street at 3 o'clock in the morning in some part of this city which is certifiably very dangerous, and at the same time I'm holding $500 in my hand and I'm leafing through the bills and making a lot of noise so that I wake people up and shouting racial epithets at the same time. Incredibly stupid behavior. Someone comes out and beats the crap out of me. You don't arrest him?
All right, and see, I'm on the record about this. What I have said is, I've made a number of different analogies. I've said things like, it would be nice to be able in Central Park or to put one's purse on a park bench and to go and play ball. Okay, that's wonderful. Be able to do that. Unfortunately, that's stupid behavior. Now, if someone steals the purse, the police should pursue the thief and put him in jail. But we have the right to say to you, that was stupid.
So we don't make a hero out of you for that.
Don't make a hero out of you. Okay, both were in some way at fault, but you punish the person. Yes, so I believe in if there is an assault, the person should be punished. But we cannot leave off the degree of personal responsibility, complicity, and creation of the crime. There is something called provocative behavior, that now you cannot say this any longer because that's blaming the victim. I believe that a lot of these young women, okay, are coming on to guys, want the guy's approval, and giving all these signals, and then acting shocked and innocent afterward. Now, there obviously are authentic date rape cases. I feel they are a minority, okay? They are a minority, and I despise this hysteria. The hysteria is as bad as it's like a kind of McCarthyism. It's like, you know, it's like that period in the Middle Ages when Jews were accused of infanticide. So all men are now rapists, and this is bad for sex. It's bad for women. It's bad for men. It's bad for the human race. It's got to stop.
You told Newsweek, "I'm all lit up, but my plug fits no human sockets."
This is correct. This is correct. It's true.
So you're hanging out at Con Ed, or what are you doing?
No, no. I just feel I'm a very strange being. I feel like that I'm neither male nor female, or rather, certain times of the month I'm male, and certain times I'm female. I go through the whole cycle. It's very peculiar. But this is the price. I have this power of observation. I feel every great gift is a kind of curse, and I think I have a great gift for observation, for study, and for conclusions. But I think my detachment from ordinary human relationships makes me a better scholar. I'm so detached. It's like, you know, in a football game, the more you're closer to the field you are, the less you can see the patterns. The farther up, you can see the patterns more clearly. I think that is my, but you know, there's this game of careers that children play, and you know, and you have a choice. You have to choose at the beginning of the game. You have hearts, you have stars, or money, right? And you choose a combination of those things for your life plan. When I was a child, I never chose the hearts. Who would want the hearts? I never chose the money. I wanted the stars. Okay, that is fame. I put 60 points for stars. So that's it. I mean, that's what's happened. All right, no hearts, all stars.
You declared yourself unrivaled at this point as the leading female intellectual in the United States, having surpassed Susan Sontag.
Right.
Simply because you caught up with her? Because she came back to the field? What?
She was wonderful. In the late 60s and early 70s, Sontag was great, but essentially she's been living for 20 years off a reputation that's completely gone. I mean, she hasn't provided any, her work of the 70s was extremely poor. And again, here's another figure who's being propped up by a corrupt New York literary establishment. I mean, the way people seem to still venerate her, you know, for what reason? I mean, again, it's like so many of these white middle-class ladies in the New York media think, oh, Susan Sontag, yes, that's the way we should be. We should be like this sensitive, intellectual-like figure who would be admired by men and so on. I mean, please. I represent the pop culture generation, okay? It's time for us now. I'm 45 years old, okay? I'm tired of these older people now. It's time, let's get off the stage. It's time for something new. And here I am. I mean, my 60s generation, okay, really kind of collapsed because of its own errors, because of problems with drugs and sex and challenges to authority. That was my problem, and so on. And we have never really made our case. It's amazing how many writers' careers of the 60s just sort of went nosedived in the early 70s. It's a very interesting cultural problem that hasn't been really examined.
What is a legitimate articulation of social ills, things that should be corrected for the benefit of women in general, and what is male bashing?
Well, what was great was that the current phase of feminism, which my generation pushed through, has now opened the professions to women. See, I'm an equal opportunity feminist. That is, I believe there should be no obstructions to women's political and legal advance. Right? So what I'm saying is that a lot of the turbulence that's going on between the sexes is not coming from the social realm, and it is therefore not remediable by passing more rules and regulations. I'm saying we need to look into ourselves psychologically, spiritually, use art and literature. I'm saying that men may have created the social realm and may have been dominant in it, but women have always controlled the emotional or sexual realm. This is what current feminism doesn't realize. Current feminism is victim-centered, victim-obsessed. It sees history as nothing but this panorama of male oppression and female victimage. I hate that. What a horrible bequest to our young women to tell them that their heritage is nothing but victimage.
You adore rock and roll, all right? And so do I, with reservations. You have to be discriminating about what you give your stamp of approval to.
Yeah.
Are you offended by a lot of the MTV images, especially with heavy metal rock, where young girls are strictly sexual objects? And it seems as if the absolute apex of young male existence would be to have 15 nubile young girls running around servicing you.
Now, you see, a lot of my unorthodoxy about feminism comes from the fact that I am a sports fan, a football fan, and a rock fan. And because I watch those two things, I don't go sexism. I go, a lot of women love sports figures, and a lot of women love rock males, right? The swaggering, the boasting, and all that stuff. Girls will throw themselves, not only at every bar band in the country, but at the roadies. Even the roadies that can get girls, and so on. So I go, what does this tell us about women? What does this tell us about sexuality? What it says is, guess what? There's something called masculinity. Gloria Steinem says masculinity is a disease. I say there's something real there, which sports have preserved and which rock has preserved. And of course, the great cultural figure of our time is the strutting rock musician. And look at, what have women done in rock? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They've had access to the guitar for 20 years.
Well, not nothing, but comparatively.
Oh, please. Now, they're good in sort of like pop bands, like, you know, like Bananarama or the Go-Go's or the Bangles and so on. They have done nothing in rock, okay?
Janis Joplin did nothing?
Oh, no, Janis Joplin.
Joni Mitchell did nothing?
What?
Well, Joni Mitchell was folk rock, I understand.
Janis Joplin was a soul singer in front of an acid rock band that was playing the guitars. Please, okay? Joni Mitchell's not rock. Oh, please. Okay, no. I'm talking about, look, we had a few great attempts. All right, Patti Smith started out fabulous, okay, in Black Leather. Then, of course, she had a baby, and then it's all power to the people. Okay, then we had Chrissie Hynde, the Pretenders, okay, coming on Black Leather, bitch goddess. I loved her. What happens? She has a baby. Immediately the hormones. Now it's like, again, she's completely lobotomized, step for a wife, and so on. Okay, what I'm saying is, hard rock is male. It's aggressive. And people who like rock love me because my voice is the voice of rock.
Is hard rock the only thing you're calling rock? I mean, what's Edie Brickell? What's Michelle Schacht?
Oh, I don't really care for them. Oh, no. I love hard rock. I love like the new Guns N' Roses album, the new Van Halen album, the new Metallica album. I love rock. Keith Richards is the founding father, as Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, of a lot of this hardcore stuff. Now, in the 70s, I didn't particularly like heavy metal, but I feel the heavy metal is preserving the rock impulse, and the rock impulse is always a breaker of taboos. Therefore, this constant berating of Guns N' Roses. Oh, you're racist. You're homophobic. What are they talking about? The Rolling Stones, for heaven's sakes, did everything they did. I mean, they shot a record album cover in a toilet. I mean, you know, which couldn't even get printed. Okay, so I love the bad boy image of rock, and I think that the aggression of rock is everywhere. See, what I'm doing essentially is it's a kind of lead guitar work. Okay, I think I'm the first great lead guitarist who was a woman. Okay, but I'm using words and not the instrument. And I was heavily influenced by acid rock. That sort of like that searing, cutting sound of the lead guitar. So people again who like rock love me. People who like soft women's music hate me. They think, oh, she's so obnoxious. But what I have is simply the obnoxiousness and brazenness of rock.